As we watch these live visuals, scores of supporters, they're coming out in their numbers to say hands off Ace. All of them coming out to show their support. We've just seen these live visuals as our reporter Dumalo Muhlaudi on the ground giving us those live visuals of senior ANC members being manhandled there. Police officers really not budging as the courthouse inside packed to capacity. Let's now take a look and listen in as we watch these live visuals playing out, proceedings set to get underway. And I'm also joined in studio by Newsroom Africa's Bongiwe Zwane as we take a look at the dynamics at play. What exactly is at stake in this huge arrest that has taken place? Of course, a big news day today as we continue to unpack the elements of this case. Okay, as we come to studio now to get a sense and just look at this matter from all angles. Bongiwe, a very good morning to you. Thanks for joining me. We've been watching all of this at play. We've seen this tense situation outside the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court. We saw barbed wire being pulled back a short while ago. We saw senior officials, Supra Mahumapi, Lokal Niehaus, really being booted out of this court, really showing that they've come out in support that is significant in the bigger space when we look at the political landscape right now and the internal factions within the ANC.
And certainly important, especially because when you look at how the irony here, when he said that he wouldn't want anybody to come to court and support him, honestly, that call was never going to be heeded by those who are supporting him. It was certainly not going to be something that was going to happen, because these scenes that we are seeing right now, I mean, surely when you heard for another time that there's another warrant of arrest now, and certainly when he responded to it in Soweto, then they started tweeting, they started coming out on all forms of social media talking about how it is now time to, really hit the ground running, go support him. And we then saw that there is going to be a flood of some ANC members that are going to find themselves outside that magistrate's court today. But certainly one of the most interesting things is that when you look at the ANC's, website in itself, it tells you that he was born in Parys in the Free State. And then the irony, Comrade Magashule played midfield in his day and wore number 8. Today, he's accused number 8. Wow. So certainly that tells you that this number 8, there's really something into it. But of course, one cannot even ignore, the dynamics of Ace Magashule in the province, like the Free State. I mean, he was ANC chairperson for a very long time. Mm-hmm. So certainly you can expect that he has a huge following in that particular province. And at the same time, even people like your Carl Niehauses and everybody were coming out to say that, they're fighting for radical economic transformation. He's a victim in this, and that is all that they keep on saying. And even these messages outside court today, when Dumaula was asking, what do you have to say to those that are gathered here today? And Supra is not even addressing those that are outside, those that were seen burning T-shirts of, the party that have the face of the current leader of the ANC, and that is Cyril Ramaphosa. There is nothing that he said to those people. All he said, the message must be clear to the police. So it tells you that what is happening outside there is certainly not a small feat, and they themselves understand what exactly is going on.
What's also quite interesting here as we, assess what's happening outside court, and that very symbolic move of the burning of a T-shirt bearing the face of President Cyril Ramaphosa, is that the party's resolutions. I mean, these resolutions were supposed to be some sort of landmark, officials failing to ask Magashule to step aside while, of course, he faces these corruption charges. One would have expected that the trigger would have been pulled at this very point when this conversation around corruption and the role that the ANC will take when it comes to dealing with them, and that hasn't been done. And for me, I thought it was quite telling because of the ANC top 6 and what's at stake for the other 5 members there. I mean, we'll know about Paul Mashatile never seemingly shaking off that Alex Mafia role and the others that, have a lot at stake.
You know what it tells you, Mpo, is a divided organization. The fact that they themselves had a president that came out to talk about how those who are facing corruption allegations must step aside. And then you had Mzwandile Masina come out while the NEC was taking place virtually, standing outside the St. George's Hotel, where the NEC would symbolically have been had it not been for COVID-19, having a placard saying that those that are facing corruption charges, allegations, must step aside until they are cleared. That was a very clear thing that message that you would have gotten from those leaders. And when the president came out to talk about this, one would have expected that it would be as clear-cut as that. But it tells you that they are now taking the matter back to an NEC. The NEC that is not in agreement in and by itself, because the ANC, as Supra said earlier on, is not a homogeneous organization. They're not always going to sing from one hymn book, but they're certainly going to take resolutions at conferences. They're going to debate matters within the ANC. Now, if they're taking it back to the NEC, a lot of people and even some political analysts have come out to say that it's quite interesting that, they're taking it back to a very divided NEC in and itself, and they're taking it back to a place where certainly you may not even expect that we can see some kind of movement. But also what you're seeing now, Paul, even from Bloemfontein, is telling you just about this particular organization. And when you look at what the NEC had to say on corruption, this is just days after the president released that particular letter, that 7-page letter that angered even some of the leaders there, where they said that the NEC meeting, the NEC has met between the 28th and the 30th of August, and you'd remember that was this year, of course, to discuss COVID-19 corruption. That is when we were at the height of COVID-19 corruption. And then they received a report from the National Working Committee on the work that was undertaken, and they were collating all the information on individuals within the organization that were facing some of the charges of corruption. And certainly this was a serious one, because you'd remember at that particular time when President Cyril Ramaphosa was penning this letter, his own spokesperson was coming under fire. And then you look at this particular letter that even talks about how, some of the corruption that they are facing is certainly, having a dip on the organization. And he even says, he was reflecting, saying that there's nationwide outrage. And you'd remember how people were upset at the fact that you have a Gauteng MEC at the time, Bandile Masuku there, facing serious charges. You had a Kusela. These are serious allegations that they were facing. In fact, Bandile was not facing charges. He was facing allegations of corruption, which he continues to deny, and even to this day. So at that time, when he was penning this letter, a lot of them became upset. Remember former President Jacob Zuma writing to him saying, you cannot paint all of us simply with one brush, and hitting hard at him, talking about how, you cannot simply talk about this. But the irony of that letter by former President Jacob Zuma was that we have seen, even under his own tenure as president, the ANC was talking about taking collective responsibility. Now, seemingly, it looks like that particular narrative may be shifting. So certainly when you see what is happening today, it is not in isolation. This has really been showing us just exactly what is going on within that particular movement. And you watching people that are outside, that are deliberately burning T-shirts that have got the face of the leader of the party. It then goes back to some of the reports we saw coming out of today to say this could be an Ace Magashule versus Cyril Ramaphosa battle.
Absolutely. And Magashule's camp members, including former President Jacob Zuma, have in the last months been hauled before the courts. I mean, we've seen that happen. And this is a move that Magashule's supporters have described as the use of state organs to fight political battles. We've heard that throughout the course of this morning. Another interesting element here is that the Hawks have made a string of these high-profile arrests in the second half of this year. And, it's an indication and some sort of assurance that they are finally starting now to act without fear, without favor, after years of really not doing anything, of all these cries falling on deaf ears. But how important do you think it is for the NPA to now make sure that it has this good image to show that work is being done, corruption is being seen, and action has been taken?
Paul, the NPA has never needed to restore its credibility like now. because this organization, you'd remember, in the past few years, it's faced allegations of interference, allegations of being weakened. You know, even there's been a lot of cases that have really gone off the radar that people were expecting that the NPA would have been able to solve by now. And certainly this is an organization that is now trying to restore its credibility, because you'd remember a few months just before we started seeing these particular arrests, the NPA had been facing a lot of criticism from people saying, but you gave us Advocate Shamila Batoy, and she said that she's going to come down on corruption. There's now Henry Grenier, who's leading the investigative directorate. You promised that you're going to be acting. And Sipho Ngwema was at pains to explain to every single media house that these things take time. But really, he understood, and in every interview, he kept on reiterating that we do understand that the public has lost patience with us. We do understand that we've got to move with speed, and we certainly are going to do whatever else that we need to do, and we need to move with speed. And when you look at Mpho, some of the people that are outside court, you know, when you listen to a person like Mcebo Dlamini, who's saying that these old people are fighting each other, it's a matter of who's close to which machinery. The NPA in and itself was seen as a machinery for others that were either using it to better their chances of controlling the narrative or punish, you know, was seen as an organization that would punish those of dissenting views. And, you know, when you look at another organization would be what Fikile Mbalula was tweeting about, you know, saying that they use the public protector to try and discipline him and get him to stop talking. And the public protector right here on Newsroom Africa saying that she's not going to comment on that because for her it's about the work, it's about what she needs to do, and it's about what she needs to focus on. So certainly, some of these state institutions are going to have to restore their credibility, are going to have to ensure that, as you rightfully put it, they are seen to be working. And when that warrant of arrest, this particular one now, because we've seen reports before, when it came out, Ace Magashule was not aware of it. He even told reporters in Soweto that I'm not aware. I'm going to be consulting my lawyers. It's okay. Whatever needs to happen must happen. But then you then hear Sipho Ngwema today being asked by our own Zianda to say, you have the news of the warrant of arrest got out before. Even Ace Magashule said he was made aware. Is this going to be jeopardizing your chances? He said, no, we do believe that the prosecutor in the matter is capable and will need to, you know, be able to now prove the case, and we do believe that we've got a strong case and all of that. But certainly, Mpho, they are coming under a whole lot of scrutiny, even for those Hollywood-style arrests. They themselves are having to answer some serious questions there, and which is, you know, one could say is probably why we are not seeing the Hollywood style anymore, and we are now seeing people either handing themselves over, or we now hear of people inside court.
In fact, that Hollywood style of arrest was something that Magashule was very, very conscious of. I mean, he spoke ahead of this arrest, saying that he doesn't want to be humiliated. He wants to be treated with dignity. In fact, he would have preferred it that you know, the media wasn't there when he spoke about the manner in which he wishes to be arrested and the manner he wishes for this process to unfold. But, you know, at the heart of the matter, is this asbestos tender fraud. Of course, the victims have spoken out very strongly about this. Residents whose houses were meant to be upgraded by the project were talking about how, you know, there was an aimless and these casual inspections in some cases. And in fact, I remember Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo at the State Capture Commission of Inquiry asking the question, could this process have been done in a manner in which the residents of the homes are able to jot down what the concerns are, take pictures and then forward it, and then have the process of the actual asbestos being removed take place without this money being spent on, you know, investigating, which, you know, is now proving that it was ineffective.
And exactly, Mpho, because when you think about it, I mean, honestly, one really looks at those victims today who are saying that they continue to have lung problems. Some have even died. Others are even saying that, you know what, they were telling Dumaule as he was speaking to them that, you know, for us, We don't even know if this will ever be done again. And when you look at asbestos, asbestos was used extensively by the apartheid government. And this was the roofing that was provided for the four-roomed houses. And certainly, it's not only in the Free State. There's also concerns about asbestos in various townships. You would have seen an investigation done by the Benchmarks Foundation that was showing just how dangerous asbestos is. Now, when you look at really how important this work would have needed to be, and even for what the Deputy Chief Justice was saying, include the people. Let them tell you what they're faced with. Let them tell you where the problem areas are. And it shows you, Mpo, because money was spent for these particular assessments. And now you cannot even account for that particular money. Even the public protector confirming that around 200 million was squandered in this particular project. So it shows you that there have been a multi-facets of investigations that have been happening here. But when you go back at the heart of it all, are the people that still have asbestos above their heads, that are still living with a health hazard in their homes. Now you ask yourself, if all this money is gone, will that project be undertaken again?
And there were some winners here. On the other side of the story, you look at the very serious impact on the people's lives, people who couldn't ordinarily afford to remove this asbestos and replace this roof and still live with these health conditions. Edwin Sodi, the businessman, ANC funder at the center of the saga, through his company Blackhead Consulting, benefited. And we saw in a very big way how that money was spent.
And Mpo, I think, some even called it a slap in the face of those that still have asbestos above their roofs, especially when you look at some of the belongings that were seized. You're looking at a 2019 Porsche. You're looking at that car is valued at 1.9 million rand. You're looking at a 2017 Rolls Royce that's worth 5.3 million rand. You're looking at a Bentley that was valued at 2.8 million. These are just some of the assets that have had to then been seized. And then you're looking at a mansion that really was is in Bryanston, retailing 85 million rand. Certainly when you look at all of this and you ask yourself, surely what other wealth was being amassed here? Because yes, he's the big winner, but as the case progresses, it's going to be interesting to see who else was the big winner here. It's going to be interesting to see if there are any other officials that they themselves have had to score some monies that the NPA in itself is still going to uncover as the case progresses. Because there have been talk from some of those that, following the SG, who are saying you're not going to find evidence that is going to link him directly. This is just a political move to try and discredit his character. This is an assault on our SG. Carl Niehaus was here, in fact was speaking to Stephen Grotes, saying that this is the CEO of the ANC, and he kept on repeating it several times and saying that we are going to go, we're going to show support. So these are all of these things that are really at play here and showing you that this is no small matter.
Very well. Absolutely no small matter. It's a big matter that we will continue to be following throughout the course of the day. All eyes on the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court today. We will continue to bring you more. Bongiwe Zwane, a friend of the anchor this morning, as we look at the very different elements of this matter. Our reporters are also stationed on the ground in the Free State, bringing you the very latest from all angles. Stay tuned.